The school bully beat me up so bad I ended up in a wheelchair. And my mom? She's this hotshot lawyer, and she became his defense attorney. In court, she twisted everything around and got him off completely. The kid who nearly killed me walked away free. Why? Because his dad paid for her college years ago. When I called her out on it, she didn't even flinch. Everyone's equal under the law, Carl. I can't throw away my professional ethics just because you're the victim. Jay just lost his temper. I couldn't let his whole life get destroyed. I watched that monster walk out of the courthouse like nothing happened, and I just laughed. I pulled out the papers I'd already drawn up to disown her and threw them right in her face. Since you're so ethical and so big on paying back favors, I said, I hope you're ready to defend what's left of your own pathetic life. Mom didn't even look at the papers. To her, I was just a dramatic teenager throwing a fit. Carl, are you done making a scene? She picked up the papers, crushed them without reading a word, and tossed them in the nearest trash can. Mr. Grant's throwing a thank you dinner at the Grandview tonight. You're coming. Jay will be there. He can apologize and we can all move on. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Move on. I was stuck in a wheelchair. The guy who put me here just got away with it, and she wanted me to go to his celebration dinner? I'm not going. The words came out cold and flat. I turned my wheelchair to leave. Mom's voice followed me, sharp with anger. Carl, can you stop being so petty? The Grants don't have money. This dinner is costing Mr. Grant half his monthly paycheck. If you don't show up, you're disrespecting me and him. I didn't look back. I just wheeled myself out of there as fast as I could, getting away from that suffocating courthouse. Outside, the bright sun made me dizzy. Dad's car was parked at the curb. He saw me and rushed over, looking nervous and worried. Carl, what happened? Did they convict him? Looking at this man, who's been a doormat his whole life, I felt completely helpless. He got off. Not guilty. Dad just stood there with his mouth hanging open. How could? Your mom said it was just a formality. She said she'd get Jay a suspended sentence at most. How did he get acquitted? I laughed bitterly. Dad, your wife is a star lawyer. When she wants someone to walk, they walk. Even if that person broke her own son's leg. Dad wrung his hands, clearly stressed. But she must have her reasons. That Mr. Grant guy really did help her. Stop. I cut him off. Take me to the hospital. I'm not going home. Dad hesitated, glancing back at the courthouse. Well, your mom just texted. She says we need to go straight to the Grandview. She said if we don't show, she'll cancel my credit card. I looked at him, 50 years old, and he lives like a dog. Mom controls every penny. He doesn't even dare talk back to her. Then you go. I pulled out my phone and called a wheelchair-accessible Uber. I'll get there myself. Carl, don't do this. Dad reached for me, but I pushed his hand away. Dad, if you still think of me as your son, don't go to that dinner. If you go, don't bother visiting me again. The car showed up, the driver helped me in. Through the window, I saw Dad standing on the sidewalk, torn. Finally, he sighed, turned around, and got in his car. He drove toward the Grandview. I closed my eyes, and the tears finally came. This was my family. A mom with some twisted hero complex, and a weak, spineless dad. And me? I was the throwaway kid. At the hospital, as soon as I got settled, my phone started blowing up. Jay had posted a bunch of photos on social media. In the pictures, he's holding champagne, looking smug as hell. My mom sat at the head of the table smiling like everything was perfect. The caption, thanks Aunt Susan. Justice might be slow, but it always wins. Cheers. Justice. Screw his justice. I opened the comments, full of ass kissing from Jay's buddies. Jay's the man. Susan's a legal genius. Where's the cripple? Didn't he show up to toast you? Jay's reply, probably crying at home. Haha. I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. Then a new notification popped up. A money transfer from Mom. $300. Stop sulking. Buy yourself something nice. I told Mr. Grant. He doesn't need to pay your medical bills. They're struggling financially. We need to be understanding. I stared at those words, feeling sick. I wanted to throw up. I threw the phone at the wall. I stayed in the hospital for 3 days. Mom never came, but Mr. Grant did, carrying a basket of bruised half-rotten apples. He stood in the doorway in his dirty work clothes, grinning like we were old friends. "Carl, my boy, Uncle's here to see you." He put the apples on the nightstand and rubbed his rough hands together. "My Jay, he doesn't know his own strength. Gets a little rough. I gave him a good talking to. And look, your mom got him off the hook, so we're even now, right?" "Even?" I looked at the basket of apples probably pulled from someone's trash and laughed. "My leg is worth a basket of rotten apples?" Mr. Grant's face twitched, but he quickly smiled again. "Now Carl, don't be like that. When your mom went to college, I scraped together that money, penny by penny. You gotta have a conscience. Look how reasonable your mother is. Besides, your family's rich. You're not hurting for a little medical money, right? My Jay needs to get married. He can't be stuck with debt." Right then, I finally got what shameless really means. This family was a bunch of leeches, and my mom was the idiot who not only let them suck her blood but complained they weren't taking enough. "Get out," I said, pointing at the door. "Take your rotten apples and get out." The smile finally dropped from Mr. Grant's face. "What's your problem, kid? No wonder Jay beat you up. You're asking for it." He stormed out, muttering curses, and spat on the floor on his way out. I hit the call button and asked the nurse to disinfect the room. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. That afternoon, the head nurse came in with a bill. She didn't look happy. "Carl, your account is past due. If you don't pay, we'll have to stop your meds." I was shocked. Past due? My mom, Susan Cole, didn't pay. The nurse shook her head. "Miss Cole came by yesterday. She requested a refund of the $50,000 deposit," she said. "She said the other family was having financial problems, and she was lending them the money. She said, you'd have to figure it out on your own." Snap. That was it. I lost it. She refunded my life-saving medical money, sent to give to the guy who assaulted me. What kind of mother does that? My hands shaking. I borrowed the nurse's phone and called her. It rang forever before she picked up. I could hear mahjong tiles clicking and Mom's cheerful laugh in the background. "Hello? Who is this?" "It's me." Silence for a second. Then her voice. Annoyed. "Carl, where's your phone? Why are you calling from a random number?" "Susan, did you refund my medical deposit?" I used her first name. "Is that how you talk to your mother?" She snapped, her voice getting louder. "The Grants are buying a house in the city and we're short on the down payment. I figured you weren't using much at the hospital, so I let them borrow it. Don't you have your own savings? Use those. You can't be so selfish. You need to help people in need." Help people in need? She was breaking my bones to keep someone else warm. That was my surgery money. I yelled into the phone. "The doctor said I need a second surgery next week, or I'll be disabled for life. You gave that money to the Grants for a house? Are you insane?" I could hear Mr. Grant's voice in the background. "Oh, Susan, if Carl needs it right away, we can wait on the house." Then Mom's firm voice. "Don't listen to him, Mr. Grant. He's being dramatic. Doctors always exaggerate. It's not that serious. Buying a house is important. Jay needs to start dating. How's he supposed to do that without a house? Carl, figure it out yourself. Stop bothering me." Beep, beep, beep. She hung up on me. I just stood there with the phone in my hand, frozen. The head nurse looked at me with pity. "Carl, maybe call your father?" "My father? The guy who has to ask his wife for cigarette money?" I shook my head. "No, it's fine. Just get my discharge papers ready." "But your leg?" "I'm not getting it fixed. If the world was this messed up, I didn't need to pretend to be the good son anymore." I went home one last time. When nobody was there, I packed up everything that was mine. Left nothing but those disownment papers. My sneaker collection, my limited edition collectibles, the gold bars I've been saving since I was a kid. I sold it all online. Deep discounts, cash only. With that money, I rented a small accessible apartment in the next city. Then I checked myself into a private orthopedic hospital. I'd missed the best time for treatment, but the doctor said with enough money, there was still a chance I could walk normally again. But no more intense sports. I used to be captain of the school basketball team. Now I was a cripple who couldn't walk without limping. But I didn't cry. I'd run out of tears that afternoon. But then someone walked in. It was my estranged grandmother. The old woman standing in the doorway looked nothing like the stories Mom used to tell. According to Mom, my grandmother Eleanor Cole was a cold, vicious witch who threw her out at 18 with nothing but a suitcase. But the woman in front of me now wore a plain gray coat and held herself with quiet dignity. Her silver hair was tied neatly back, and her sharp eyes immediately landed on the cast wrapped around my leg. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then her gaze drifted to my chart. Her expression changed. "Who authorized delaying your surgery?" Her voice was calm. Too calm. The doctor beside her hesitated. The payment situation became complicated. Grandma slowly turned toward me. "What happened?" I almost laughed. Because where was I even supposed to start? "Your daughter defended the guy who crippled me. She stole my surgery money. She gave it to the family of the psycho who beat me half to death so they could buy a house. Instead, I just looked away and muttered, 'It's handled.'" Grandma stared at me for a long moment. Then she quietly pulled a chair beside my bed and sat down. "When Susan was 10, she said softly, she pushed a boy down a staircase because he beat her in a spelling bee." I blinked. "What?" She lied and said he slipped. Grandma folded her hands neatly in her lap. "When I found out the truth, I made her apologize publicly and paid the boy's medical bills myself." A bitter laugh escaped me. "She didn't learn much." "No," Grandma said. "She learned something worse." The room fell silent. Then she reached into her purse and handed me a folder. Inside were photos, bank records, property documents, and right on top, a deed. The house the Grants were barely affording? It was already under Mom's name. I stared at her in disbelief. She bought them a house? Grandma's eyes hardened. "She's been funding that family for years." I flipped through the documents faster. Private school tuition for Jay, car payments, legal fees, even monthly allowances. My stomach twisted. "She told us they were struggling." Grandma gave a cold smile. "They are struggling because your mother keeps handing them money." Then she leaned closer. "Carl, do you know why your mother and I stopped speaking?" I slowly shook my head. "She stole from your grandfather's company." I froze. "What?" "She embezzled money to help a boyfriend at the time. When we found out, your grandfather wanted to call the police." Grandma's voice stayed perfectly even. "I stopped him because she was my daughter." Her eyes filled with disgust. "That was the biggest mistake of my life." Everything suddenly clicked into place. Mom wasn't noble, wasn't ethical, wasn't principled. She just liked playing savior with other people's lives. And she expected everyone else to suffer for her choices. Grandma stood. "I already paid for your surgery." I looked up sharply. "What?" "The best surgeon in the hospital will operate tomorrow morning." I couldn't even speak. After everything that happened, kindness felt unreal. Grandma adjusted her gloves carefully before adding, "And after that, we're going to destroy your mother." For the first time in weeks. I smiled. The surgery lasted 11 hours. When I woke up, my entire body felt like it had been fed through a meat grinder. But the doctor smiled. "It went well. Not perfect. Not miraculous. But well. With rehab, I'd walk again." I stared at the ceiling after he left. Walk again. I didn't realize I was crying until Grandma quietly handed me a tissue. "You got lucky," she said. "I know." "No," her voice sharpened. "I mean legally." That got my attention. She placed a tablet in my lap. On the screen was security footage. The school parking garage. Jay shoving me down the concrete stairs. Over and over. Not self-defense. Not an accident. Attempted murder. My breath caught. "How did you get this?" "The school buried it," Grandma replied. "Your mother helped them." Rage exploded through me so hard my vision blurred. "She hid this." "Oh, it gets worse." Grandma tapped another file. Audio recordings. My mother's voice. If the footage disappears, the lawsuit disappears with it. I stopped breathing. She tampered with evidence, I whispered. Grandma nodded once. Your mother forgot something important. Her eyes turned icy. I taught her everything she knows. For the next month, Grandma moved with terrifying efficiency. Complaints were filed with the state bar. The media got anonymous copies of the footage. The hospital billing fraud was reported. The school board opened an investigation. And then, everything detonated at once. It started with the news. Prominent defense attorney Susan Cole accused of evidence tampering and ethical misconduct. The footage aired everywhere. Jay's smug face, my broken body tumbling down the stairs. My mother escorting him out of court afterward with a smile on her face. The internet went feral. Monster. Psychopath. What kind of mother defends that? Then came the financial investigation. Turns out Mom had been siphoning money from joint accounts for years to support the grants. Dad found out she'd secretly mortgaged part of their property. The house she bought for the grants? Paid for using college funds set aside for me. Dad finally snapped. Not dramatically. Not heroically. Just completely. He filed for divorce. And because Grandma buried him under a mountain of evidence and lawyers, Mom got destroyed in court. Poetic, honestly. The same legal system she manipulated chewed her apart. Her law license got suspended pending investigation. Clients fled. Her firm dumped her within a week. Then the grants turned on her too. The moment the money dried up, they vanished. Jay got arrested after another violent assault surfaced online. Apparently crippling me gave him confidence. Last I heard, he was sitting in county jail awaiting trial. Mr. Grant tried showing up at Grandma's house once, demanding help. Grandma answered the door herself, then calmly sprayed him with a garden hose until he stumbled off the property screaming curses. I laughed so hard my stitches hurt. 3 months later, I walked into physical therapy using only a cane. The limp was still there, probably always would be, but I was standing. The therapist smiled proudly as I crossed the room. You're doing great. Maybe, but some damage never really leaves. That night my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Almost. Then I answered. Silence. Soft breathing. Finally. Carl. Mom. Her voice sounded hollow. Small. I lost everything. I stared out the apartment window at the city lights. And for the first time in my life I felt absolutely nothing for her. Not anger. Not sadness. Nothing. You made your choice, I said. Her breathing hitched. I'm still your mother. I looked down at the scar running along my leg. Then I remembered the hospital bill, the rotten apples, the laughter during mahjong while she handed away my surgery money. No, I said quietly. You were Jay's. There was silence on the other end of the line. Then Mom started crying. Not the loud dramatic sobbing she used in court to manipulate juries. Quiet crying. Real crying. I made mistakes, she whispered. But I was trying to help people. I actually laughed. You helped the guy who crippled your son buy a house. Carl, you refunded my surgery deposit. I thought. You thought what? My voice finally cracked. That I was exaggerating? That I'd magically recover while Jay picked out kitchen cabinets. She started sobbing harder. For years, that sound would have destroyed me. Now it just exhausted me. You know what the worst part is? I asked quietly. I kept waiting for you to choose me. The crying stopped. And in that silence, I think she finally understood. Not the scandal. Not losing her job. Not the investigations. Me. She lost me. I'm sorry, she whispered. Then, for the first time in my life, my mother said something honest. I don't know why I did it. I closed my eyes. But I did know. Because some people become addicted to being needed. Mom loved rescuing broken people because it made her feel important. And the Grants knew exactly how to use that. Meanwhile, Dad and I loved her unconditionally, so she never valued us. We were furniture. Permanent. Safe. Expendable. I have rehab early tomorrow, I said flatly. Don't call again. Carl, please. I hung up, then blocked the number. A week later, Dad showed up outside my apartment. Alone. No expensive suit. No nervous smile. He looked older. Smaller somehow. When I opened the door, he stared at the cane in my hand for a long moment before his eyes turned red. I'm sorry, he said immediately. No excuses. No, your mother meant well. Just sorry. That hit harder than I expected. He stepped inside carefully like he thought he didn't deserve to be there. Honestly, he probably didn't. I should have protected you, he whispered. I kept telling myself keeping the peace was the right thing. But I was just a coward. I looked at him quietly. This man failed me over and over. But unlike Mom, he knew it. Dad reached into his coat and handed me a folder. Inside were bank documents, property transfers, account numbers. What's this? Your mother hid assets during the divorce. His mouth tightened. I found them. I blinked. You're turning her in? She already destroyed our family. His eyes looked emptier than I'd ever seen them. I'm done helping her do it. For a while neither of us spoke. Then Dad carefully sat across from me. She talks about you constantly, he said softly. I felt nothing. She sleeps in your old room sometimes. Still nothing. The house feels, he swallowed hard, dead. That one almost got me. Because despite everything that used to be home, basketball trophies, movie nights, Dad burning burgers on the grill while Mom worked late, before the grants, before Mom turned saving strangers into a religion, before I became collateral damage. Dad looked around my tiny apartment. One bedroom, cheap furniture, medical equipment in the corner. And suddenly he broke down crying. My son grew up rich, he choked out. And now you're living like this because I failed you. I stared at him for a long time, then finally sighed. It's peaceful here. And it was. No screaming. No manipulation. No pretending abuse was kindness. Just quiet. Dad wiped his face roughly. Your grandmother scares me, he admitted suddenly. I snorted despite myself. She sprayed a man with a hose. She threatened 3 lawyers at dinner. He looked genuinely traumatized. One of them apologized to me. For the first time in months, I laughed for real. Dad stared at me like he'd just seen sunlight after years underground. And something inside me softened. Just a little. 2 months later, Mom was formally disbarred. The footage tampering case became criminal. Turns out deleting evidence connected to a violent assault was a massive mistake. The media camped outside the courthouse for weeks. Every ugly detail came out. The stolen surgery funds, the coaching of witnesses, the hidden financial support for the grants. Her career died publicly and painfully, and the internet loved every second of it. Meanwhile, Jay finally took a plea deal after multiple victims came forward. 3 years in prison. Not enough, but better than freedom. The funniest part? Mr. Grant lost the house. Since it was tied to fraudulent asset transfers, it got seized during the investigation. The entire family ended up back in their tiny apartment. I heard Jay's girlfriend dumped him too. Apparently attempted murder isn't attractive long-term. Shocking. Winter came. My limp improved. I started college online. Life slowly became something survivable again. Then one snowy evening, Grandma invited me to dinner at her estate. The dining room looked absurdly fancy. Mom broke. Not dramatically. Not with screaming or excuses. She just covered her face and cried like someone finally forced her to look at herself honestly. And for the first time, I didn't hate her. I just felt tired. Grandma stood from the table first. Good, she said coldly. Now that everyone's finally honest, maybe this family can stop poisoning itself. After that dinner, Mom stopped calling. Stopped trying to force forgiveness. Instead, every month, a check arrived quietly to cover my rehab and tuition. No notes, no guilt trips, just payment for damage that could never really be repaired. Dad kept visiting, at first awkwardly, then naturally. We started rebuilding slowly, basketball games on TV, terrible takeout, arguments about movies. Normal things, the kind families are supposed to have. As for me, a year later, I walked across campus with only the slightest limp. Most people didn't even notice it, but I did. Every step reminded me of what happened, and what survived. One afternoon, I ran into Jay outside a courthouse downtown while leaving physical therapy. He looked thinner, meaner. Life had hit him hard after prison. For a second, we just stared at each other. Then his eyes dropped to my leg. "You're walking," he muttered. "Yeah," I said calmly. "Funny how that works when someone doesn't steal your surgery money." His face twisted with shame and resentment. But this time, I wasn't scared of him. Not even a little. Because people like Jay only feel powerful when everyone else stays broken. And I wasn't broken anymore. He looked away first. That was the moment I realized I'd finally won. Not in court. Not through revenge. But because despite everything they did to me, I still had a future. And they didn't. A month after I saw Jay outside the courthouse, the final pieces collapsed. Turns out prison hadn't humbled him at all. One night he got drunk at a bar and started bragging. About me. About the fight. About how his lawyer aunt helped him beat the case the first time. Unfortunately for him, one of the people recording was a true crime streamer with 2 million followers. By morning, the clip was everywhere. Rich bully admits lawyer helped cover up assault. The internet exploded all over again. But this time, there was no expensive law firm protecting anyone. The state reopened parts of the investigation. And buried deep in all the old evidence, they found something beautiful. Jay had violated probation months earlier during another assault his family paid to hide. That confession video was enough. He got dragged back into court in handcuffs. No smug grin this time. No champagne. No Aunt Susan beside him. Just a public defender who looked exhausted before the hearing even started. When the judge revoked his plea agreement and extended his sentence, Jay completely lost it. Started screaming. Blaming everyone. Blaming me. Blaming his dad. Then he shouted the worst possible thing. "My aunt promised this would disappear." Dead silence filled the courtroom. Every camera turned toward Mom. Her face went white, because she'd been sitting in the gallery, trying apparently to support him one last time. That single sentence buried her permanently. The prosecutor immediately announced a deeper corruption investigation into her old cases. Clients she helped win started coming forward. Witness tampering, hidden evidence, backdoor deals. The media nicknamed her the savior lawyer. Not as praise, as a joke. Within weeks, civil lawsuits gutted her financially. The house sold. The vacation property sold. Her designer bags and jewelry ended up on auction sites beside bankrupt celebrities and divorced billionaires. Meanwhile, Mr. Grant tried running from debt collectors after multiple fraud investigations started circling the family. Didn't work. His construction company collapsed after reports surfaced that he'd been paying workers illegally under the table for years. The IRS tore through his finances like wild dogs. The man who once called me ungrateful ended up crying on local news about government persecution. Nobody cared. Then came the best part. Dad invited me to lunch one afternoon with the strangest expression on his face. "What?" He slid his phone across the table. An article headline stared back at me. Former attorney Susan Cole sues Grant family for fraud and emotional manipulation. I burst out laughing so hard the waiter checked on us. "She's suing them?" Dad nodded, looking half horrified, half impressed. Apparently once the money disappeared, the Grants abandoned her instantly. No calls, no support, nothing. And something inside Mom finally snapped. She turned on them like a starving wolf. Years of secret payments, hidden favors, and illegal transactions all got dumped into court records. She practically handed prosecutors a roadmap. Grandma nearly choked laughing when she heard. "She finally learned," she said. "Learned what? That leeches don't love the body they feed on." In the end, the Grants lost everything. The house, the company, their savings, their reputation. Jay stayed in prison. Mr. Grant developed a gambling problem and disappeared after creditors started hunting him. And Mom? She ended up alone in a tiny apartment working at a legal document office nobody respected. One rainy afternoon, years later, I saw her by accident through a cafe window. She looked older than her age. Tired. Human. For a second, our eyes met. She looked like she wanted to come inside and talk. Instead, she slowly lowered her gaze, because by then even she understood. Some things ruin beyond repair.